Welcome to this new podcast episode. Today, I'm talking to Laila Martins. Welcome, Laila.
Hello, thank you for having me.
I have to say, front, I made a huge mistake now because we had an interesting conversation for more than half an hour, and it's not part of the conversation we're having in the podcast now. And she has to leave in like less than 45 minutes, so it's going to be a little bit shorter than we normally do. But maybe I'm going to ask her back, and she says yes, and we'll have another conversation. But let's see. So, Leila, we met at Co in Switzerland at the IDG um, relationship cooperation with the IFC, the International Initiative of Change, a 4-day event, and you were part. You were giving a short talk, and you were part of a how you call this a setting where you have multiple people talking. How you call this?
Panel.
A panel, right? A panel. And so I really like what you were saying there and what you were sharing. So I asked you to share some of that knowledge here in the conversation. But then, of course, I did more research in preparation of this conversation. So I also got, oh, yeah, my gosh, she's doing a lot of things. Um, so, giving the time that we have, what I want to do now is see what you do with the IDGs, with the inner development goals, because I feel what I've seen from you is that you have a lot of hands-on knowledge, how you do things. And a lot of people who are in this IDG world are looking for that. They want to work with it and they don't know how. So that's why I think, okay, let's get there. And now, because we are limited in time, just get there as quickly as possible. So you are part of the IDG hub of Bonn, which is in cooperation with Köln, I think was it? Yeah.
Yeah, correct. We're now trying to build something even within the entire state. So yeah,
Oh,
we're
wow.
trying to call it.
So, why did you get into this IDGs? Why was it? How did it draw to you?
Yeah, well, I've been working in sustainability, diversity and inclusion, HR generally, and I think on my own and through a lot of research, I came to terms that we have the technology, we have the money, we have the policies and ideas all over the world. And I honestly think that what is holding us back is our behavior as human beings to each other, but also as organizations and as countries and those bigger systems. And so I saw the IDGs and I was at a friend's house in the middle of something. And I said, no, I have to attend this event. And there I saw two people in the city and I said, hey, I'm also in the city. And I didn't have a lot of other kind of local volunteering that I was doing because a lot of things were in German. And I said, oh, this is great. This is English. And look at these people. And then we met and we just hit it off. And I think that it was funny because the two of us that started, we were also part of ISAC. So this is a volunteer exchange organization when we were in college. So it's really interesting, again, how the things that have shaped us in many different ways, in many different ages and genders, how we kind of brought us back together. But I honestly believe that it's going to be our imagination, our mindset, and our behavior that's going to help us mitigate and adapt to the crises that surround us.
So, for people who don't know you yet, you were born in Brazil. You were living for a long time in the US, and now you live in Germany. You live in Bonn in North Rhine-Westphalia, close to where I live. Um, so you were doing this program I saw in cooperation with the UN, and also another program I saw was with people who work in AI. Let's do that first. Let's go there first. So AI, right? So if you put AI now into front of the business you do, the product that you offer, or behind oh, I have a new product, AI. It's featuring AI, right? So everything needs to be AI, otherwise you're not hip anymore. So what do you mean relationship between inner development goals, inner development of AI programs? What is why?
Brilliant question. And this kind of brings us back to the IDG community because this was only possible because one of our colleagues within the hub, he had been working with Deutsche Telekom for a very long time. And there was a bar camp, and he said, Laila, are you interested? And I said, of course. And things just went from there. And I connected with the incredible Tatiana Wichtig, who is today the executive director of the AI Competence Center. And her background is a lot in this mindfulness world and a lot in this world of human-centered technology, which is what Telecom talks about. So it's these people that are in these huge organizations that not only see the potential that the organization can have if it were to really like imagine the most positive organization you could have, but are also people that are themselves going out and doing extra research and creating new projects. And she then, there was this new competence centers that was being based, and they had a 2-day conference. And for her, it was really important that not only are they going to have a conference for them to learn about AI, but that they were talking about their responsibility as AI experts and what is, and in the end, one of the big things is what is the legacy that you want to leave behind? And so it was amazing because honestly, it was 100 more AI experts that are all together in the same place. The CEO of the organization kind of was on a Zoom to talk to them. So really, like you said, the cream of the crop of the organization around this topic. And she said, hey, yes, we're going to have some time for you to have all of your AI time, but we're going to make sure that half of a day, which is a long time in corporate time, especially in conference, is going to be dedicated to personal development of the people here. And we're going to use the AI, we're going to use the IDG framework to do that. And so we had we had another colleague as well that had been working with Telecom for a very long time and working with Eunice Foundation and all of these other kind of social enterprises. We had an organization also from the Netherlands that really talks about, unlocking this human potential and bringing us there to, great. We want you to, find a way to do your job. And at the same time, there is no one that is responsible for your decisions as an AI lead specifically. That's going to have more impact than you are going to have, than your mindset and your legacy. And that's the kind of thing we pushed is, what do you want your legacy to be? And honestly, I saw a grown Greek man cry. And that's the kind of things that we think don't happen in these types of settings. And it did, So how can we bring this more into spaces where we're like, what? And allow the IDGs to be that door opener for us to be, just be that little buzzing, like, hey, don't forget about this. I think that's important.
And in our hub here in our area, in the Achterhoek, in the Netherlands, when you're from the Netherlands, you understand where I am. We had a meeting, get together with the people in our area about the IDGs, and we had an expert who is a professor talking about AI and ethics. So, and we brought him into the IDG world also from this perspective, because I believe, again, inner development is really important. If you want to make decisions, right, you have to have like courage, you have to have like an inner compass, which is really strong. And so we had a conversation with him and the group that was there about what technology do we really need and how is it important? Could we skip technology because we feel it may be like not the right thing so there was a really interesting discussion with all kinds of viewpoints. How do you feel personally about AI if you look at sustainability, right? Or regenerative, that's your topic, right?
Exactly. Man, I have been obsessed with technology since I was a kid. All I wanted growing up was that my mom would give me a new computer every 2 years. Like I was like, I don't need any other gifts. As long as every 2 years I get a new computer that's actually functioning. Because I don't know if you remember during that time, like 2 years was a big time in computer time. And obsessed with kind of going to space and obsessed with all of this like technology hype, right? And then going into learning about, yeah, first of all, international relations, right? Where the cobalt is being pulled from and who's pulling the cobalt. That was already a oof to my technology love. And then going into sustainability and seeing that, yeah, that a lot of the waste that we have, a lot of the emissions that we have are because of that. If we're looking into things that are the technologies that we thought could save us from bureaucracy, like blockchain and all of these things that the UN was pushing very, very hard and continues to do so. They went the negative way. Instead of being useful technologies and helping shape the world as quickly as possible, they were then led to kind of scams and things in that direction. Though they are very useful and there's things, but not in public perception, I would say. So I have a very long history recently of technology is magic, if you think about it. Like, try to explain to someone 100 years ago that you and I are having this conversation right now. Wild. And at the same time, technology is perpetuating a lot of the issues and literally life on Earth as we know it. And at the same time, I think we've gotten to the point, especially from a climate change perspective, that we need to use all that we have at stake to help us move forward. So I think that AI can be a real solution to our deepest biodiversity issues, to our deepest kind of identifying of solutions to climate change. If it were held in that spot and not made for, yeah, just every single picture that you want saying that Taylor Swift is voting for Trump, then I think that AI would be, I don't know if you've been online that much, but we have like the chaotic good and the neutral good. It would be up there with like, yeah, it's not perfect, but it's really helping us actually move things forward. But that's not the case for anything in this world. And I also think that the cat is out of the box kind of thing. We can't put it in because people were saying 20 years ago that the internet and technology were harming the planet and that they would not start using a computer because it was harming the planet. And here we are, because we have that. It's very easy for us to have that baseline shift. There's a name for it. Shifting baseline syndrome. So like, oh, what was really crazy 10 years ago today is super normal. And so my perspective is we need AI to solve our climate issues. We need AI in the hands of good people doing good work so they can do that work faster and they can have the support that they need. We need to find ways to make the consumption of water specifically a lot less of these places. We need to make sure that these servers aren't running on coal, because that would just be the opposite intuition. But I don't think every single organization on this planet should be putting AI in their company thing, and that we need another thing to be added on there. And the last thing I would say is that if AI can help us remove the need for physical technology, so I don't know what you've been seeing around, like, yeah, you just have a phone, it's just a chip, and you just talk to it and it tells you what you need, and you no longer need all of the 30,000 components that are in this. Could that also be a way for us to still use technology and reduce it a lot in another side? So I have a lot of thoughts when it comes to this. I don't think good and evil exists in the world. I think there is, most of the time, people using technology without knowing the evil it's causing. And we don't have enough people knowing the evil that it's causing, trying to find ways to actually move it into a positive light. But yeah, AI is really complicated, not only from a technology perspective, and this is the last thing I'll say, but also from a plagiarism perspective as well. So I think that's when it becomes really, really tough, because you have this company is just taking everything. LinkedIn is starting to do that as well. So taking all of the information you've ever gathered in your human brain and putting it here. And if they were doing it open source, which was the idea of open AI, right? If that was open, okay, but they're doing it to become trillionaires. So I don't have an answer.
No, and
I have different points to think about.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I think I agree with all the points you just mentioned. I think that the whole part, well, I have one thing that I I'm not sure if that is really true, but difficult to do. So once the cat is out of the bag, it can be put in. I'm not sure if that's really true. Before we talked about the book, The Dawn of Everything.
Mm,
In that book, um, the authors talk about how the Indians um, forwarded technology to their children um, through toys. So when they got to new technology and they thought about it, and they thought as community right now, we don't want to use it because we feel it's not going to help us in the good way. But we also found the technology, so the cat is out of the bag.
mhm.
But we're going to give it to our children through toys so that once they have a good way to work with it, they can use it because we have not just thrown it away. And I think that's an interesting discussion you can have is because right now it looks like you just said, the cat at the back and we can't do anything about it. But it's just because these large companies are just pushing it, right? So
Mhm.
they're not asking questions, do you want it? They're just pushing it forward. And it kind of like feels for us there is no escaping it. So everybody's doing it, so we should be doing it as well. Everything that we do has now the influence of AI already in it. So if you type a message, you see AI everywhere in your email, in your LinkedIn, everywhere online. So, but it's not a deliberate choice from humanity or from society or from communities. It's a deliberate choice from these companies that have only one goal in mind, and it's to make even more money and to have more control.
Yep.
So I would say there is something that we can do there. I'm not sure what because I have not enough expertise on that. But when I read that book, I go like, okay, this is something that we could think about new technology. Is just to research it first
Yep.
before we really implement it, and then make a decision how we want to move forward instead of that saying this is the new normal and we just have to accept it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I think the cat is out of the bag in the sense of like this technology is something that's available to me. And taking it away from me, taking anything away from anyone, then becomes the difficult thing to do, right? Not that governments wouldn't be able to set a law and like, yeah, Brazil just blocked Twitter or X a week ago. So like that doesn't like forget Elon Musk, in Brazil. But it's the I need a communication channel. So then the first thing Brazilians did is kind of level up Blue Sky and all of these other technologies because they felt the magic that is being able to connect with anyone. Like sit down, like not that I'm recommending, but the first time you sit down, I remember this clearly. My first couple of prompts, I went berserk because to me, it was the first time I had felt like magic coming from technology in a long time because I think everything's just become this. Okay, my phone can take a picture of me and do 4K recording. Ooh, big whoopee. All of these shifting baseline syndromes. But the first time I did the prompt, I was like, whoa, that's insane. And so I think taking it from people that that is going to be the difficult thing. And I am super for all of these laws that are protecting, and I think, yeah, the EU is doing a lot more than the US could possibly do at this point in time, and I think we need to do a lot more. And I'm convinced that if we were to use AI for a positive good, for climate specifically, which is the area I kind of focus on, I think a lot of our simple climate questions or problems could be answered through if we were able to monitor, have the data, be able to showcase. There we go. There's no negotiation. There's no back and forth. Like we need to stop negotiating climate. That's not, we need, okay, this is it. This is the limit. What did you do? How are we helping you solve it and go forward? Because
But these discussions have never been about data.
yeah, I know, but how can we allow ourselves to take the human behavioral out of this
It's
and
impossible
find a way to put it? I don't know. I don't know. I
to
think
me. To me, I'm sorry.
we need to get to the point where we are saying we are not, as a species, prepared to handle climate change, allowing ourselves to make selfish decisions, because when it comes to these negotiations, it's going to become a selfish decision. So not that technology is unbiased or can't be rattled or anything, but that we find a way to say, hey, this is why I'm really, I don't know if you've heard about like DAOs and decentralized autonomous organizations. That's what I think a lot of these organizations could be. A very simple example: if does an organization have a salary of a CEO that's over 100% more than anyone? Okay, cut him, he gets less. Let's say anybody has hit their 500 million euros. Great, you've won capitalism. That's it. Okay, every other penny that you earn is going somewhere else. Like, how could we get to the point where we can trust that we can find ways where we can get human sentiment outside of our decision-making process, and that we have something that's kind of counterbalancing it? And that's where I think technology can help us, like getting ourselves outside of our own heads and egos. Not that it's going to be easy, and not that it's going to be forward thinking, but that's what I hold on hope for.
Okay, so what I know now is that I want to continue this discussion with you in a later time, hopefully also physically, that we meet each other, because Bonn is not a far drive for me. Because I see it differently. So that's a very interesting discussion, but it's going to take us too long to do it right now here. So I'm just gonna put a pin in it and use it for another time, because I love the discussion. I love your views, and I feel it completely differently. So that's good. What I'm interested in is, what did you do with these AI experts on their personal development? What focus did you have? What did you do?
Great question. So what we try to do is really go through the IDG pillars. So then on the first morning, we had a bit of a theater show with an amazing organization from the Netherlands called Hatch, where they were doing skits, and those skits were part of talking about real world scenarios that they were going through. And trying to make it kind of funny so people could laugh at something that's a little bit difficult in talking about these topics, and maybe that they wouldn't feel comfortable bringing out to the boss. And so that was really great, because then that we mixed the IDG order a little bit, but we talked about relations. So the importance of being able to relate to somebody, see other people suffering. And it was great because we were then able to take those examples back into day 2, which then we had an entire morning to do 4 different sessions. So we were basically rotating them every hour and a half. I would have to look, but basically we had enough time to go through it. And then we had 4 different experts that were focusing on one specific area. So I was focused on, I think mine was acting. And then, so for example, we had a friend, Matoki, who was working on being. So he talked a lot about Ikigai, is his work. So he talked a lot about reflection, what the world needs, connecting with that. Then we had Tatiana, and she was in thinking, and she talked a little bit about AI ethics. And just because we need to put safeguards on it, doesn't mean you can't move forward, but we need to put safeguards on it. So she talked about the example of the car. People love the car. People were really happy with cars. But until we put seatbelts on cars, people were just dying all over the place. And that the car is not the solution to our problem. But in the sense, the metaphor here is that for you to have access to something, and for you maybe to not harm yourself or others, we can put safety rails on it to allow us to move forward. And then we had Martijn talking about collaborating, and I feel really bad because I don't remember what he was doing in his session.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, actually, I think his session was the one I'm thinking I didn't. We did like a marketplace. So how could they support each other? What are the things they were needing and they could support each other with? So not just technological solutions, but also how to deal with these complex ethics if they were having like needs, and how could they reach out to people that felt safe to them. And then the last one was more on thinking about their responsibility. So that one was mine. So what is your legacy? We did the imagine yourself when you're 90 meditation to really get them. Imagine what you could build. Is that the life you would want for yourself when you're there? So make sure that what you're building is what will be supportive for you when you get there. So kind of walking them through some of those exercises and talking about, I did specifically about climate change and SDGs and how the why the IDGs are so supportive there and why we need the SDGs.
You are pretty visible on this topic, right? So on LinkedIn, on Instagram, at least that's where I see you. Um, do you feel pushback when you talk about the topics of inner development, or is it more about when you talk about regenerative? How do you experience it?
Very, very, very much so. So I remember my first conversations, how I was so shocked to be in a corporate setting and to have a question raised to me like, don't you think the IDGs are very esoteric? And I had to like go back in the back of my mind and remind myself the definition of esoteric, because it felt, because to me it's just it's like science, it's like teamwork. We've learned this, now we need to implement it. So to me there is a very deep spiritual connection that I think we need to get to. And when I talk spiritual, I don't mean religious, I don't mean connected with the God, but what do your soul care about? And I think that I get a lot of pushback that that's too fluffy, that that's too out there. So what I've learned is that I can have a really good deep session and I can present it at the UN and at a university and people are gonna love it. And I can have a session that I'm gonna do the exact session in corporate and people are gonna hate it. And then the opposite. I can do a session that really gets somebody from corporate like understanding, and I can do it at the UN or I can do it in a very progressive NGO, and they'll say like, I didn't get it. That was too simple. What do you mean? So I've learned is that it needs, you can't go with a one approach with your audience. You need to kind of meet people where they are and like gently pull them in the direction you want to.
What is it that you do personally in these skills from the IDGs that you use in your work or your life?
Um, in what sense? Just trying to get it because a
Yeah,
thousand.
well, just yeah. I think it could be in any sense. It could be like your sanity against these pushbacks, against what's going on in the world,
Yeah.
right? So you working on these really large topics, and that can be very frightening because you can never solve them. That kind of feeling could happen, right? So, and then you can give up everything, and you say, okay, nothing that I do matters. So what do you use to keep you sane? And you look at those skills, and what practices do you use?
I mean, the first thing I would say is community. So having people that I just send a 5-minute WhatsApp audio to and be like, this is happening. This was really frustrating. And having them who themselves do a lot of practice around IDGs and inner development and hearing what they say and hearing it not in the same way that my wife probably said the exact same thing, but they're able to translate it into words that connect with my brain. Life changing, life changing. People at Unity Effect and Yannick, life changing. And at the same time, kind of creating that place of rest and creativity. And so when I say like rest, I mean like stopping the brain. Like, what can I do to just be here? So meditating, but I like a lot more visualizations that helps me a little bit more. And the kind of third piece around that is creative rest. So finding a way to get it out of you. So either a conversation to a friend or like writing something or drawing something or going out and running in the forest. Like I love biking intensely. So allowing adrenaline to do what it's meant to do, which is kind of like clear your mind. Uh, so yeah, I try to understand what is it as a biological creature that would improve the situation for my biological body first, and then I deal with how I might think about those things kind of second.
Yeah, that is interesting. Because in general, I think we respond the other way around, right?
Mm-hmm.
We think, then we go back to the emotions.
And it's not that
Well,
it's perfect, to be very,
no,
very
no, 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 of
that
course
there's
not.
those spaces for expulsion of feelings sometimes.
Hmm. And if you look at um, the conversations that you have in the corporate environment, um, how do they react, respond to like the being part, for example, like
Mm.
the spiritual part, how do they respond to that?
It's still very much in the meditation phase in the larger corporates, right? So the larger corporates were able to get to like a diversity and inclusion. So where they are in their journey, like they did diversity inclusion, learned about mental health, and now they have like a mental health month where everybody meditates, so they understand meditation. And so there, I think that's where they stop. That's where it's good, right? Because some organizations don't even allow that, and depending on countries. Um, but that's why I talk so much about from sustainability to regeneration. It's because really it's this need of I don't really care about the climate deniers. We were talking about that before we recorded. I really don't care about climate deniers. Like Catherine Hayhoe changed my life. Read her book. I
Saving
forget
us.
her name. Yeah, Saving Us, because like I really don't care. I care about those people that are my neighbors that have maybe have an electric car but buy every weekend from an Amazon, or about that friend that only kind of thrift shops but is doing something big in their organization. And honestly, I also don't care about individual human behavioral that much. I think we cannot blame our human bodies and our human behavioral for the individual change. The behavioral part is we need to learn how to change our collective behavior. And this is where the forgiveness part comes in. I think you need to forgive the individual all the time, but we need to hold the collective accountable, and finding a way to do that that is just and recognizes errors of the past and potential future implications as well.
To to make sure I understand you, you talk about the collective behavior, but that is the foundation lies with the individual behavior, right? Or do you see that differently?
I see it as I see culture. So you can have your inner behavioral, but you have your culture that is guiding you. So I think what we need to change is culture, and we will do that through changing behavioral of individuals and enough individuals getting together. But we can't blame the individual that's not changing, because
Right.
most of the time they are not changing because there is a system that is holding them back. They can't take a train from one place to another because it's 7 times more expensive than an airplane. So I think I have a hard time, like, I feel a lot of compassion towards the individual, and I think we all should, while helping multiple individuals improve culture and make that systems change. And yeah, we need to focus on large corporations. We need to focus on large organizations and governmental systems and help those individuals in those sectors move things forward. And I think that's the biggest power of the IDGs is if we all thought about it like that. And that
Hmm.
is why we started working with the UN and with large corporates here, because we thought, okay, the moment we are able to say we started working with the UN, then it gives us, I can open the door to City of Bonn. It was like this. But if I'm going here and I'm a community organizer, hey, City of Bonn,
Yeah.
like, like let's be pragmatic about and strategic about how we use the IDGs to really precision ourselves through these systems.
Hmm. I before I talked with Katja Deal, she wrote the book Autokorrektur,
Mm.
which is about correcting how we think about cars
Mm-hmm.
in Germany, which is of course a very difficult task because Germany is about about cars. Everything is about cars.
Yeah.
So also she is giving me a different perspective on how we could look at cars or look how we could look at mobility.
Yeah.
So that I like that a lot. And again, when you do this in such a culture where cars are so important, you are getting so much pushback. It's very difficult to maintain your position and maintain your sanity because you just overwhelmed with people who hate you because you say something that's really against their ingrained culture.
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting um, part for the people who are first in this movement. If it's like her, but if you also on the inner development part, you have to have like a lot of courage and
Yeah.
sanity to keep going and to keep moving forward. Okay. Like I said in the beginning, I'm so sorry that we didn't start recording right away, but we're gonna do it on a different time, in a different space, because I have to make sure that you leave on time. I think that's part of my uh, well, anyway, doesn't mean I have to be respectful to your time, so that's important. Is there something that you still want to share now?
Thinking about it from an inner development standpoint, I would really love it if everybody that's kind of using the IDGs for their work, like to in company, how they could think about the IDG serving their city. Like, how could it support the people in their city towards becoming more resilient from climate change? And that can be because of a climate disaster, natural disaster, or because of social issues that are going to be connected to climate. So that's my request. And if you're interested in that, that's what we're going to be talking about at the IDG summits, right? Bringing the UN to the summit to really try to together identify how can we create ideas, projects on connecting inner development as a key instrument towards climate innovation and climate solutions. So yeah, I'm convinced that the IDGs can support us, and I hope it does.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And it's active hope. You got to work on it, right? So,
Yeah.
so Leila, thank you very much. And also a very interesting last point. I agree with you with that part. I think it's really interesting to see what you can do within your community and talk to your city about this. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and your insights and your expertise so far. And looking forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you. Me too. This was great. And interested on your thoughts as well. So thank you so much.